Well, welcome everybody to the very first Absolute BJJ Podcast. My name is Dana Dickeson. I'm the host of the podcast, and we are here on location at Absolute BJJ Academy in Little Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. Today I'm joined by my very first guest. This guy is my friend, my business partner, my jiu-jitsu student, and my personal counsel, lawyer. His name is TJ Burke. TJ has an amazing story, and we wanted to sit down and chat today. TJ started jiu-jitsu at the age of 50 or almost 50. So today we're going to talk about, what it takes to get started older, if you're an older guy and you want to get started in jiu-jitsu, or what it takes to keep going in jiu-jitsu as you get older. I think that's an interesting topic, and we're going to tackle that one today. So TJ, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Coach.
Awesome, man. Listen, could you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us a little bit of your background, and then we'll kind of dive into the jiu-jitsu subjects.
Sure. So, born in Los Angeles, California, and shortly after my mother and my father separated, I moved here to Fredericton, New Brunswick. And so I would have got here about 7 years old. That would have been, like 1979. And, went to live on the Fredericton's north side and have stayed on the side of the river ever since. Went off to Fredericton High School after, completing my, elementary, junior high school years, and played sports through at FHS, mostly baseball and football. And then after graduating high school, I decided, I'm going to try this university thing. It was what, my parents wanted for me, but quickly realized that I just wasn't ready at that time. So I joined the U.S. military. My family has a long history of serving in the United States military, and I thought, this is an opportunity to do something different.
And you're Canadian First Nations, TJ, right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Your background, so you have dual citizenship, right?
Right.
With Canada and the U.S.?
That's right. I was born in the United States and came here as a part of the dual citizenship that most Canadian First Nations have.
Really cool.
Yeah. So served with the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. It's an elite airborne unit. So I jumped out of planes for 5 years. Had deployed a couple of times. It was a really good opportunity for me to learn really what it was like to be a man, because I was only 19 by the time I had left. Came back and then got back into university and then went off to law school. And after graduating law school, I thought I was pursue this career as being a lawyer in maybe some big city. And then came back to Fredericton, New Brunswick after I graduated law school at Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Ended up getting involved in provincial politics. And met a guy by the name of Sean Graham at the time and another person by the name of Greg Byrne. Greg was a former cabinet minister under the Frank McKenna era. And they encouraged me to get involved in leadership at the time. And so I was supporting Sean Graham as the next candidate to become premier under the Liberal Party banner. And in 2003, I ended up being on a ballot and ran on as the member of the Legislative Assembly in Fredericton North. And I won in 2003 and then won again in 2006. And 2006, we had formed the government. After defeating Bernard Lord's Conservative government, and Sean appointed me as his Attorney General and Minister of Justice. And so that role was a unique role too, because essentially I ran the public prosecution system. So I was responsible for, overseeing the administration of justice and public prosecutions in the province of New Brunswick. Right. And in 2010, I ran again. I was defeated, and which ended up being a blessing for me, because I went back to the practice of law. And my career has just continued to grow since then.
I mean, you have a really successful practice here in town. You're a well-known defense lawyer.
Yeah.
I mean, you do some pretty cool cases. I have my own personal Law and Order episode some days. Of course, no names are discussed, of course, but I get some interesting stories from you.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful career as being a criminal defense lawyer. There's not a lot of us really in the region, so I've traveled all over Atlantic Canada defending individuals, everything from murder cases to significant sexual assault cases. I've gone as far as Ottawa to participate in the Senate expense scandal cases as well too, where I defended members of the Canadian Senate on matters that were of national importance. And so it's been a long journey. It's been 23 years as a criminal defense lawyer, And I've enjoyed every bit of it, right? So
That's awesome. Now, I mean, the podcast is, that's so interesting, and we've talked a lot about that. I'm always fascinated with your stories, and we could do an episode just on that stuff alone. Right. But to bring jiu-jitsu into the picture, I mean, you've been training jiu-jitsu now for 2.5 years or so, and you got started in your late 40s. Yeah. People might think to themselves, well, you were an airborne and, you were a badass military guy. But, that was 1995. Like a lot happened between 95 and 2020 when we got started together, you training jiu-jitsu. So, fitness was always a big thing for you. You're in good shape. You're a fit guy. But tell people, like, how did you get started? What kind of led to your interest in jiu-jitsu, and how did you get started there?
Well, two things, right? So a big part, I always loved the UFC, and I always, would stay at home and watch the fights. And, it's, the typical, beer drinking, big pizza in the hand.
Absolutely.
And, thinking,
do this, do that.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
And he didn't do this. And then, not ever realizing like how difficult that stuff is, right? Because, in high school and the military, I'd participated in combat sports, boxing and Taekwondo. But the big motivator for me was having a run-in with you at the previous academy where I would go to the gym, and saying, hey, I'd like to do this sometime. And of course, as you know, I had sponsored a lot of the fighters and a lot of the events here.
Yeah, you were always around when I was fighting MMA. You were always there supporting the local guys at the cards and stuff. So
right.
you knew me through that.
That's right.
We were acquaintances through that.
Right. And I guess the big sell for me was simply, all right, look, I felt like I was running out of time.
Right.
And I said, it's going to be now or never, and reached out to you, and after some back and forth and finally getting it organized, I ended up doing actually it was about 3 months of privates with you.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you went the private route, but I think whether people decide to do private lessons for a few months to get used to it or to jump right into class, what challenges did you kind of find right out of the gate? What were you up against, being in your late 40s, trying to get started in jiu-jitsu? What was your experience with that?
Yeah, so a lot of nights I would come home sore and ego hurt and questioning whether...
Are you saying I would hurt your ego? I wouldn't do that to you, would I?
It wasn't so much that. It was well, I wouldn't say yes it was, but it wasn't.
Build them up by breaking them down.
That's right. A big part of it, too, was just the fact that I wasn't as flexible and I wasn't as quick to recover as I was when I was in my 20s, right?
Right.
And so, in learning how to condition your body, because there are a lot of years of sitting on the couch just eating bags of chips and watching TV,
Well, and even though you worked out at the gym, you're not really doing those types of dynamic movements that you end up experiencing in jiu-jitsu, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes in an involuntary way.
Yeah, it is... no question. You would go to the gym and you would lift weights and you'd get bigger and you'd get stronger and you'd feel good about yourself. But the reality is that, you still can't manipulate your body in a certain way to defend yourself appropriately unless you're actually doing the technique.
Right.
So calisthenics is a big part of assisting my body with getting used to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And I remember back when we started training together, like you would get really exhausted after just a couple of rounds. I think we probably did a couple of weeks of privates first, and then we rolled maybe 2 or 3 minutes for the first time, and it was really challenging, right?
I'll never forget it.
Yeah,
I'll never forget it. It's was by far the biggest eye opener for me because. You had growing up. It was not an uncommon thing on the north side of Fredericton to get into some scraps or tussles,
100%.
right? So,
yeah.
But to actually be flattened out on your back and not have any clue on how to defend yourself from your back was one of the biggest eye openers.
Well, and one of the things is that we grow up thinking about fighting like punching, kicking. Like I grew up watching Van Damme movies and like American Ninja and stuff like that. So. It's so foreign the way that we fight in jiu-jitsu, right? Mm-hmm. But if you think about it, we would always talk about karate kicks and all this stuff, but then when you would go at it with your buddies, it would be wrestling, right? So grappling is natural to humans, but for some reason we just have this different image of what combat looks like.
Absolutely,
yeah.
100%. So, And there's a humbling aspect to it as well too, because number one, I was a white belt. You were, a black belt, a long time black belt, and there was I wasn't getting anything unless you gave something to me.
Right.
But the cardio aspect of it, the first time you went over and said, "Okay, let's roll," and hit the timer for 3 minutes. I thought I was going to die after the first 3 minutes, and because of the pure exhaustion. But after I started to build up my cardio, and after I started learning a little bit of the techniques and the give that a good training partner and a coach allows for the student to have, it was exhilarating.
Right.
Yeah, it really
and would you say that? I mean, I remember after about 3 months, we were doing multiple 5-minute rounds,
Right.
rolling together. So it didn't take long to get over that hump.
No, it really didn't. It's natural, I think, for individuals to, when they're consistent, to develop the cardio, and as the technique is coming, you learn from good instructors and from other individuals who are training with you that you don't have to expend all your energy all
Right.
the time.
Right.
This isn't an Olympic gold medal mound.
It's not a fight to the death
Right,
every
exactly.
round, exactly.
Yeah.
But sort of that's the challenge when you're new, and especially when you're a strong and athletic person such as yourself, and myself too. When I started jiu-jitsu, I was strong, and that's what I had going for me.
Yeah.
So you try to use your strength because you don't know anything else.
Yeah, it's a big eye-opener because for me, even still, I do tend to want to muscle things when I'm in a bad spot. But always, the technique is what's so sound because, I've rolled with 285-pound white belts and have my day with them.
Right.
And then I roll with a 140-pound purple belt, and I'm getting nowhere with that individual.
Yeah, that's right. One of my early experiences is rolling with a brown belt who was like 150 pounds. And, I was a police officer in Toronto at the time, and I thought I was pretty badass. But I was a white belt in jiu-jitsu, and I got just destroyed, tapped a few times from pressure, and it was very humbling.
Yeah.
That was really early on in my jiu-jitsu experience. And I remember kind of thinking, man, jiu-jitsu sucks.
Yeah, right.
It took me a couple of weeks to dust off the old ego and go back.
No question.
Yeah, for sure. So, what are some of the key things that you've adjusted in your, you like to lift weights, and I think a lot of people that maybe are interested in trying jiu-jitsu and haven't yet, or are new to jiu-jitsu, they probably are trying to stay fit in other ways. What have you adjusted in your sort of outside of the gym routine to help you be more effective and be more, consistent in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so I'm going to be 52 next week. So I started about, like I said, late 49-ish, kind of midway through. And I've learned a lot over the last few years, and a part of that is just through the academy, through the instruction, and a little bit on my own research as well too. So number one, I try to stay as hydrated as possible, get as much rest as possible. I try to eat properly, keep a balanced diet, and nutrition is extremely important. I know that I'm not recovering as quickly as I used to when I was in my 20s, and I don't have to roll as much and as frequent as the young guys do. If I want to roll 3 times on a Monday night and then come in and roll 2 times on a Wednesday night, then that's my prerogative, right? I don't feel pressured that I have to do 15 rounds unless the coach says we're doing 15 rounds.
Right. And I think that's a sign of a good, healthy culture in an academy, right?
Absolutely.
Is when you're able to guide your own journey a little bit. You want a coach that's going to push you, but not push you to the point where it's not safe or not healthy. Because, really consistency is key, right, in jiu-jitsu. And that's something you've been really good at over the last 2.5 years is every week in, week out, you make your practices. And you've been able to stay largely uninjured through that journey. So what are some of the things that, what is some advice that you can give people on how to manage their training so they don't get hurt?
Yeah, so again, I'm really big on the nutrition aspect. I think that's extremely important. The other thing too is just showing up here, because I'm also a firm believer that if you only come once or twice, and then show up 3 weeks later, that your body isn't getting adjusted as much as it needs to be. And then fatigue is such another aspect as well too. I try not to roll when I'm extremely tired or overtired or overworked, because let's face it, we all have to get up the next morning and we have to go to work. Most of us aren't doing this, professionally.
Do you think that that's something we get as we get older, is maybe a little bit more wisdom to be able to say, because I've gotten good at that too. And it's, even though I've been training for a long time and training consistently for a long time, I always would try and push myself to get 5 or 6 or 7 rounds,
Right.
And now I'm like, oh, it's okay just to roll 3 rounds and kind of take it light and have fun, and then, live to fight another day type of thing.
No question. And I think when you get to a certain age, you have to take that approach because, let's just face it, if I'm 20 years old and I suffer a catastrophic injury, then I'm going to be able to bounce back within 4 or 5 years and maybe earlier and come back and continue to train.
Right.
When you're in your 50s and you suffer a catastrophic injury, that's pretty much going to be your career, unless you're an exceptional individual who's going to come back a year later and
like
continue to
myself
train.
off of my ACL tear.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. For a lot of us, you want to continue to excel and you want to continue to succeed in your own journey, because everybody's journey is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But there's no question that as you get older, you have to be a little bit wiser on the mats.
For sure. Dude, I'll tell you, I saw this meme the other day where it's this old guy and he's on a walker, and his grandson is petting him on the back, and the caption says, "When I was younger, I used to choke men twice my size." And then the kid is like, "Okay, sure, Grandpa, let's get you back to the home." Yeah. And it just gave me it's supposed to be funny, but it actually gave me this huge anxiety about, man, am I someday going to reach a point where I'm not able to do this anymore?
Yeah.
And that's kind of scary, right?
Yeah, as you know, we've got individuals in the academy that are even older than me. I used to be
67 or 68 is our oldest member.
Right, and so I guess it just depends on what you want from jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Are you doing this for physical fitness? Are you doing this for self-defense? Are you doing this to, for some other secular purpose?
Right.
For me, it's a combination of fitness. It's a combination of self-defense. And it's a combination of just being addicted to it. Not to mention the fact that a lot of my best friends are a part of the Jiu-Jitsu Academy.
Yeah, the social aspect is huge, right?
It really is. Yeah.
I know for myself too. So many of my close friends over the years have been Jiu-Jitsu people. Is that sort of is that because we're just always here and you meet those people, or do you think that there's something more to it that bonds Jiu-Jitsu people together?
I think it's a combination of it, because you get a chance to really sweat and bleed with somebody over a period of time, especially those that you started with and who've been around for a little while. As you know, there are people who come and go. I've seen it already in the last 2.5 years of people who sign up for a couple of months and you never see them again. And the individuals that stay and you watch them get better and you grow with them and you sweat with them and you bleed with them and you choke them and they choke you. There is a camaraderie about that you really can't find anywhere else.
No, you're right. And I think you have a military background, I have a policing background, and we understand that bond.
Right.
And that bond really is because you've experienced this sort of mutual suffering together, and you rise above it, and that bonds you together. And although jiu-jitsu is not as serious as military service or police work, I think that's sort of that same, a feeling that runs through it.
Yeah, like I said, the people that are a part of your academy often transition to becoming a part of a big family for you. And so, we'll often have social events. We'll celebrate other individuals' achievements or birthdays or the birth of a child for, a club member. And it really is a big family environment, which I tend to enjoy.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of people classify martial arts as an individual sport, but I always say without other people, people are your equipment. Yeah. So without other people, you're nothing in jiu-jitsu. So it really is in a way a team sport. We need each other to get better. Yes, when we go out and we fight on the mats in a competition, it's one-on-one. Yeah. But without the team in the room, then there's no way to get better.
Yeah, that's
right?
Absolutely true. You're guys that there are guys that I will roll with that are getting ready for a competition in their 20s, and I guess for me it's a testament to my own personal achievements that they don't go easy on me, the 20-year-olds.
No, you're right. You're right. And that is good. Right. Although sometimes I wish they would go easy on me.
Right.
I know as I get older, I have to get wiser because these young guys are so physical and they have no quit.
That's right.
Yeah. So
and being a body for somebody so that they're getting ready, sometimes I look at it as that is my contribution to them in getting better.
You're right.
At the sport.
You're right.
But and at the same time too, I mean, it's up to me to be able to say when we come back to this. Well, longevity in the sport, especially when you start at an age of 50, I have to be able to say to individuals, I'm not prepared to roll with you. Not right. because I don't want to roll with you, because you're stronger, you're faster, you're quicker, you're too good for me today, I'm too tired. I'm always polite about, rejecting an individual from being rolling, because let's face it, there are sometimes you get in a position that you're rolling with an individual and you're got in the back of your mind that they might hurt you.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Right, not purposefully, but accidentally.
Well, and that's, you brought back a saying from an academy you visited in Florida, that there's the kill zone and the chill zone.
That's right.
And you should be able to choose kind of which you want to roll in, and that's absolutely true, because in a mixed level class that we have here at the academy, we might have guys that are preparing for competitions that are looking to train at a high level, but then we also have that mixed in with people that are just here, twice a week and they're a work a day normal dude. So yeah, you have to have the power to say that, and you should train somewhere where they empower you to do that, right? Yeah,
and that's what I've enjoyed about your academy, Dana, is that it's always been that way.
Yep.
You don't have to go as hard as the next guy all the time.
Yeah, that's right. And I think just feeling like you can communicate that with the coaches and with the people that you're training with, just being able to say, hey man, I'm like banged up today. Are you able to go light?
Right.
And then the other person being able to say, you know what, I'm really trying to get some hard rounds in for the competition in a few weeks. And then you're like, okay, cool. Maybe we should just roll with other people.
Right.
It's okay, right?
Yeah.
And it used to be, and I was guilty of this as a coach when I was younger, of just like, you're going with this guy. I don't give a crap if you want to or not.
Right.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not necessarily the best approach for health and longevity in jiu-jitsu. Now, we had talked earlier about the white belt's the hardest belt to get. And what we mean by that is like getting in the door that first time and getting going in jiu-jitsu is tough. So if you were going to offer some advice to someone, a buddy of yours or someone, and let's focus specifically, I mean, this probably applies to all age groups, but we're talking about jiu-jitsu over 50 or over 40, or, we're getting a little long in the tooth. What advice would you offer to someone to just get started?
Yeah, so the big thing is to actually pick a goal and a purpose as to why you want to get involved in jiu-jitsu, and stick with that, because that goal will eventually change a little bit. I mean, when I first decided to come, it was about fitness and it was about learning some cool self-defense stuff. And 6 months later, I was doing a no-gi tournament. I never thought in a million years I'd be doing a tournament.
Right.
So my goals evolved as I got
involved. You told me
sport.
you'd never go into a class.
This is
when
true.
When we were doing privates, you were like, I just want you to know, I'm never going into a class. I was like, okay, well, we'll see. We'll see how you feel about that. And then within a few months, you were all in, right? So.
Yeah. I mean, a big part of it, too, because I did the privates and you had built my ability up and my confidence up quickly. And I think that's what's great about jiu-jitsu, is that you come in here and you know nothing, and in 3 months you're starting to, kind of get the feel for things.
That's
and
right.
6 months you're actually showing what you're learning on the mats.
That's right.
And a year down the road, I mean, you're really kind of finding your groove, and you're learning how to escape, and you're learning how to defend things, and you're starting to sub people routinely, and it's just a great thing.
Now, you did privates, which is a good way to get started, but not necessarily accessible to everyone for financial reasons or just availability or whatever. But I think what you need to do is, if you can't do privates, and honestly, most people, 95% of people, they go straight to an academy and they start going to classes. Right. I think that it's important to find an academy that has an on-ramp for beginners.
Yes.
Programs that are dedicated to beginners with the basic technique. Whether you're rolling or not, you should have a choice in that, and that should come with a discussion with your coach. Don't just go somewhere and try and jump, right out of the frying pan into the fire. Because maybe that works at 20 or 25, but at 45, then, you kind of only got this one shot to get started. And like you said, if you get hurt, then that can be the end of it real quick.
Absolutely.
So, find a place that's going to help preserve your well-being. And then I think you hit on something too about goals. And as a coach, I try to find out the goals of the people. And maybe it's not even a direct, hey, what are your goals? But I watch and I listen and I learn from the people that are in our academy. But if your coach doesn't ask you that, don't be scared to communicate those goals, because maybe they think it's something else, or maybe they're assuming something different about you. So, feel free to tell people what you want out of it, right?
Yeah, I think that's extremely important, because everybody's goals are going to be a little different. People that are 20 and 30 and 40 are going to definitely have different goals than 50. A lot of guys, I guess, if I'm going to say, that I'm encouraging at my age to come in here, it's because of the physicalness of the sport, the addiction to the sport, but it's so good on the mental health. And it's so good in terms of the conditioning.
Yeah.
And just recently, I was fortunate enough to go to a medical clinic in Toronto last Monday. I did a bi-force stress test. So I was on a treadmill with all of these, these things in my mouth and all these, stickers on my chest, measuring my heart rate. And I had a VO2 reading of 47.
Right.
And so 47 is quite high for 50, which means that all that oxygen I'm taking, I'm turning into energy, which puts me at a standard of a 20 to 29-year-olds.
And you told me when you last did that test, it was a handful of years ago, and you're up 9 points.
Yeah, actually, I was actually up 11 points.
11 points. Wow,
this morning.
That's amazing, right?
Yeah. So I have a stronger cardiovascular system and stronger heart at the age of almost 52 than I did when I was 42.
Right. And you were not a cardio guy before starting jiu-jitsu.
No.
You like to work out, and we were into strength training, but not into conditioning, really.
No, I wasn't a guy who got on the treadmill for,
Well, I find that
run.
so boring.
Is.
I can't get down with that. It's funny because I couldn't go on the elliptical machine or something for an hour, but then I could get on the mats and roll for an hour and be way more tired or have my heart rate way more elevated than I would on the treadmill.
No question.
So it's a matter of just keeping your mind busy while you're doing it, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that makes jiu-jitsu so rewarding is, you really start to see and feel the benefits. It's kind of a catch-22, right? Because we always joke that everything hurts. It's just different stuff.
Right.
You definitely always have some pain in this or that, and I'm sitting here right now and I'm like, oh, my neck is sore, my ankle's sore, and we just finished training a noon class, but the rewards, and the physical benefits, they far outweigh some of those little kinks and bumps and bruises.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's a great confidence builder. And, like I said, your conditioning is fantastic. And at my age, too, at least you know what you're waking up hurting from, right? So there's nothing worse waking up in the morning and you're feeling pain and you don't know what it's from. But
no, that's it, right?
From jiu-jitsu.
Well, it's funny because I always thought, I'd rather be sore from jiu-jitsu or from training than just sore from sitting on the couch, because you feel worse that way when you're inactive, right?
Of course.
Yeah.